Hey you guys, we are back with another message, and today I'm going to talk about sabotagers. I originally did a video on this where it was on my TikTok. However, this one is an extended message, and it's because of the fact that it is very important for us to understand the nature of a sabotager. Many of us have difficulty with understanding the fact that a person could be capable of these kind of things, okay? And when we are amongst people who have this sabotaging personality type, we don't quite understand that a person could actually be this sinister in nature, okay, you guys? And many of the people who are sabotagers are unfortunately are family members, okay? So with that being said, let's get right into it, okay? So many of us are raised up in households with family members that are extremely controlling, okay? So when you are raised up in a family dynamic where you have a caregiver, a parental figure who is absolutely controlling to the point where you don't quite understand whether it's control or a person who is showing you love and concerned about you, okay? And many of times when it comes to children in general, we don't really know these things. This is the reason why we can't blame ourselves for not knowing certain things, you guys, because we were children. Children don't set out to think negative ways about their family members. We just see life as it is, okay? Because we are raised up in family dynamics, and this is the way that it has always been for us, okay? So when you are in a family dynamic where a person is highly controlling, okay, meaning that nobody has ever said vocally that this person happens to be a controlling person, or that you've never witnessed that a person in your family dynamic actually stated these things about an individual, and you don't really think much about it, but this person decides all of the decisions that you make. And it's not that the person is extremely strict in most cases, because when we think about sabotagers in general, think about the word sabotage. A sabotager is an individual who wants to see the worst for you. So there are some things that they may praise, such as negative things that you do, more than they would praise positive things, okay? Unless that positive thing actually benefits them in a way. Okay, so this is what they want. Typically, when we think about sabotagers, in many cases, there are two different kinds of sabotagers, and there is also several ways that go unseen as being sabotaged, okay? Now, the number one thing is when we think about the negative sabotager, is what we're going to talk about right now, because they are the most obvious ones that they are controlling, okay? So when you have a parental figure who is hyper active when it comes to focusing on you in every aspect of you, and not in a natural way that a parent actually focuses on a child, okay? Meaning that they're hyper focused on aspects that are kind of odd for them to be focused on. For example, would be your sexuality. They're hyper focused on the friendships that you make and things of that sort. Now, there are parents who are to be concerned about the kind of relationships that their children are having, but when it comes to the point where you are actually meeting good quality friendships, you're making friends with people that are actually decent people. There are people who want to be involved in your life. There are people who want to assist you with certain things. There are programs and activities and things that you desire to join, and these people are accepting you to be in certain programs. You're getting scholarships, and you have a parent that is extremely controlling and refusing you to actually build these connections. That is a sabotager, okay? This is a person who doesn't want to see you do well, okay? And then there are instances where you are qualifying for certain jobs, and you're being told not to take that job, to do something else, and that you're not going to be really good at a thing, or this thing isn't going to work because it's going to require you to travel and things of that sort. This is what sabotagers do. They always make it a focal point for you to make decisions based on the family, okay? That is the thing. Everything is about the family. They've always, have this kind of like close-knit relationship, and that's a form of control, you guys, because this is what sabotagers typically want you to do. They want you to have an obligation for you to focus on the family, okay? Regardless of what it is that you are going to do, and even many of these things that you will inspire to do independently is ultimately going to be effective to assist the family. Okay. However, with a sabotager, again, it goes back to them having a form of control over you. I think that oftentimes when we look at people who have this controlling nature, that we have difficulty with understanding certain things because of the fact that why would a person want to control another individual? Some of you guys have such a low self-image of the way that you are and the things that you contribute to a dynamic that you don't see yourself as useful as you actually are. Okay. And then there are some people who are in family dynamics that the family member in particular may be a person who is far more sinister, that they actually are thriving due to your lack. Okay. And many people don't understand that because there is a deep perspective as to how many of people are in family dynamics where there is one person in the family that happens to be wealthy while everybody else is struggling. And there's a reason for that, you guys. However, when we think about the sabotager in general, when you have a parent or a person who doesn't want to see you do well, if you are entering into friendships, romantic relationships, and things of that sort, where they are always basically telling you that this person doesn't love you, that they think that this person is actually interested in someone else. They may even say things like, I don't think that this person is actually attracted to you. I think that this person is trying to use you. And some of you guys, you feel really disheartened about it because of the fact that this person is being very negative, and they make you feel as if you aren't deserving of love. Okay, so that is one dynamic when it comes to the sabotager, because ultimately the goal is for them to still have this form of control over you. They're never going to relinquish that control. There are many times in life where I see people, unfortunately, who've been around a sabotager all of their lives. This is where we see people who have grown up and have never developed not even their fine motor skills, you guys. Basic things that you are supposed to know, where there are adults who still don't know things that adults are supposed to know. These adults don't even know how to take care of themselves because they've been programmed mentally where they are undeveloped due to a parent that has decided to not teach them certain aspects of themselves and to beat them down so severely psychologically that it has caused the individual to have mental struggles and mental issues, and they aren't able to actually do certain things because of the fact that they've been severely abused, psychologically. So when we think about another perspective, because we're going to go on two spectrums of the sabotager, there are some people who raise their children up to be narcissists. Now, there are some people who will raise their children up to think that they are actually better than other people. And typically, when we think about narcissistic people in general, they're going to use people on either spectrum, because remember, there is a scapegoat and there is a golden child. And the golden child is the one that is going to be more subjective to falling into suit when it comes to the ways of doing things around the narcissistic family dynamic. So on the spectrum, again, when it comes to another form of abuse, which people won't consider it as abuse, but in actuality it is. Because if a child isn't taught the proper way to do things, there isn't a great balance when it comes to something. Whether the child is on the surface appearing to be more superior than another child, that is still a form of abuse, you guys. It is. And I know that it's very difficult for us who have been amongst narcissistic individuals to think that to even consider the fact that a person who was raised with a silver spoon in their mouth, that they could have been abused as a kid. But there are some kids who are, in fact, in situations where they are narcissistic due to the fact that they were abused in a way that doesn't seem as being abusive. Being told that you are better than other children when you have a innate desire to actually be around children, even children that are more or less fortunate than you. Even when we think about the movie Richie Rich, how he desired to hang around with the neighborhood kids, and you have a parent who's telling you, no, you don't need to hang out with peasants, that you're actually better than these kids. That is a form of abuse. They're basically stripping this child of actually getting to know anything outside of what the parent wants this child to think, that they are actually better than others. So this child is forced to think those ways while having a true desire to actually connect and have a genuine relationship with any individual. They are forced to think a certain way. And some of them adapt to these ways, and some of them actually conform to these ways. And conformity and adaptability and acceptance is true. They're totally different, you guys. Some people do things because of the fact that it's easier for them to actually do life if they comply. And then there are some people who do things because they want to do those things. Okay? So when you are amongst a sabotager is the kind of person that on another spectrum, as we're talking about, where the child is actually the one with the silver spoon. Okay, we're going to call that the silver spoon child. That child is a child that is being raised to think that they are better than others. That is a child that thinks that they are too good for certain opportunities. They are basically just too good for everything. Like, there's nothing that's actually good enough for this child. So this is where there are a lot of people who have parents, whether you be a male or a female, that you have a parent who thinks that your spouse isn't good enough for you. Like, you shouldn't date this person because of the fact that they have a particular family background, because of the fact that this person has a history. Maybe this person has, they don't have a good track record from their past or something of that sort. Whatever the case may be, this child, the silver spoon child, is typically going to be labeled as the golden child. So they are going to be looked at to be carried as a higher standard, which in actuality is awfully and oftentimes disturbing for an onlooker, okay, to actually see how this person thinks of themselves in such a way that they are no longer in reality. Okay, that they're not able to actually have genuine relationships with people because they haven't exercised those things growing up. So they were basically just coddled. They were only around people that the parent thought was, successful, or people that they thought were actually on their level when it came to certain aspects. So they didn't get to have the opportunity to get scratches, to climb gates, and to do things that are exciting, and fun things that are just normal things that children do. And what typically happens is when a child is suppressed when it comes to normality, okay, what they begin to do is they begin to engage in things behind the parent's back. So they begin to do things that they were supposed to do at their child, like normal things, because it's normal. It's very normal, you guys, for children to engage in certain things, okay? Because it's a part of life. Like, children, we're supposed to feel fear. We're supposed to be excited. We're supposed to do things that are a little bit sneaky at times. This is a part of being a child, So when you are a child that's always been observed to just sit there and to just look pretty or to look nice and not to do too much, and don't get a hole in your stockings, and don't dirty your sneakers, like just kind of just sit there and just be a boy, be a good boy, be a good girl, just sit there, and you're so handsome, and you're this, and you're that. But they actually want to go out there and they want to get dirty, they want to get scruffy, they want to run in the rain, they want to play in the mud, they want to again be a kid. It's just normal. It's an amazing thing for you to actually have that freedom to actually be a kid. So when you're not doing those things and you become an adult, or you're a young adult, what they begin to do is they begin to be very sneaky. So what they'll do is they'll start doing things that are very how can I say it, like what do you call it, white collar crimes, okay? Like, so they'll do things that aren't really like out there when it comes to criminal activity, but they'll do things that are very sneaky. So they're doing things that are basically under the guise of still being a good kid, but they have this other side to them. Okay. And the reason why that happens is because they're not able to actually exercise both aspects of them, meaning that there are many aspects of us. Is a good aspect of us, which we all have a sense of good in us. I believe that. Okay. I believe that we do. However, we do also have negative things about us. So when we think about, in general, the narcissist, okay, how they aren't able to regulate their emotions, doing things that are like toxic sometimes as a kid, and misbehaving in things, those are ways that we regulate our emotions. Those are the ways that we release certain things. So if a child on the surface is always appearing, the silver spoon child is always appearing to be perfect all the time, what room does it leave them to actually get into things that they ought not to? Okay, so this is abuse, because you're not allowing the child to actually do certain things and to make mistakes. Okay, and that can be a lot of pressure on a child that's always, been looked at to be a perfect child. Okay, a child that's not able to make decisions on their own, which means that they're always going to mommy or daddy to ask them, do you think that this is the right thing? And we all wish to have that kind of parent. Unfortunately, I wasn't afforded that kind of parent growing up, but I got more of the sabotager parent on the others end of the spectrum. Okay, not the one that actually empowered me to do certain things. Now the difference is that typically when we think about the silver spoon child, is they most likely turn out to be successful on the surface. Okay, so they'll go to college, they'll get their education, and that's typically because it makes the parents and the family dynamic look well. Okay, so they're not going to sabotage their child like the other parent is going to. Now, the other parent on the other spectrum, they're going to make sure that their child doesn't finish school. They're going to make sure that they don't know how to cook, that they don't know how to clean, that they don't know how to do anything, because they want that child to be dependent on them, and they enjoy tearing that child down. Okay, on the silver spoon spectrum, it is far more complex, which is very difficult for one to leave that kind of dynamic. When you blatantly can identify the fact that you're being abused, you're going to eventually get tired of it and you're going to exit the building. Okay? Most of you guys are going to go off to college and you're probably never going to go back and visit your parents again. But when you are a silver spoon child, where a parent does things for you, where they buy certain things for you, and they're doing all of these things for you to kind of, have this form of control over you, and you feel as if you're being loved, but then you sort of feel as if you're missing out on opportunities and you're not able to expand certain things, and then you find yourself being extremely depressed, and you're drinking and you're smoking and you're doing certain things that your parents don't quite know about. This is when it becomes, really difficult for that child to actually understand exactly what's going on, which creates a lot of confusion, which can, in many cases, you guys, over a extended amount of time, when the person is confused as to what they are actually involved in, how things are happening, it can cause an individual to experience psychosis. Psychosis is to be trapped in between two worlds, you guys. And I'm not going to tie into too much into that right now, because I am going to speak more about that at a later date. Okay, this is where you are really confused and you don't know whether you are in a dark path or you are in the light. You're confused as to how your life is going. There are things that are starting to conflict with the way that you've been doing life. Okay, so you may have been able to morph as a silver spoon child. You finally got things together. You finally, see things the way that your parents kind of see them. Okay, so you're comfortable. You're not at peace, but you're comfortable enough to do that. They allow you to do certain things, but you're still not growing in aspects that you were supposed to grow in. Like aspects of not thinking that you are better than other people, or aspects of not seeing yourself as needing to be perfect. That is really tough, you guys. That it has to be tough for a person to be so perfect, to appear to be that way, when deep down inside you subconsciously know that you are flawed, and sometimes even more flawed than an individual who actually is being openly flawed, because you're hiding aspects about yourself, which makes it even more convicting and difficult for an individual to actually deal with. Okay, now the sabotager. I am going to stop here and then I'm going to go into the next clip, you guys.